Welcome to the journey to freedom. Those before us left lessons. We gonna learn and repeat them. We not gonna follow directions because we know that they cheating. The game has been rigged, but into the code and you'll beat it. The North Star ain't the brightest, but it's the one that you seeing. Just follow your spirits because you was born with the secrets. We gonna find what we seeking. Heart's gonna keep beating. Every day is the party. We don't just start on the weekend. We going harder than semen, marching, discarding our demons, bombarding the garden, led by the daughters of Eden. We are all that we needed, clever but never defeated. We do it better together. They want us broken, competing. We defying the owners, open and bold with our treason. We defying the owners, open and bold with our tricks, and kids is smoking and drinking because we be coping with trauma, drama, mama fussing, cussing, and little cousins be bleeding. All the homies be tweaking. We get locked up for no reason. Hunting us all year. We not just cuffed in the season, catching feelings, healing, but still throwing shade in the evening. If you saw the impossible, would that make you believe it? Boarding up our schools, they still don't want us reading, trying to shut us up because they don't want us screaming, but we done woke up now. We'll show them what we've been dreaming. Oh, they got us messed up. But here come the redeemer. Now stop. Move to the beat of my drum. Who can you feed with a crumb? And what can we grow with a seed? Our body don't burn in the sun. Build it up and then they'll come. Can't freely have fun with your funds. We know that freedom ain't free. We need role models and teachers for this world swallow and eat us. But it's hard to know who to follow when everyone around you's a leader. Do it for Darian and Adia, Dame Mo and Rakia. We'll fix it or break it down, but one way or another, they'll see us. What happened when prisons abolished? Well, hustlers put kids through college. We learn money can't fix every problem, or we don't need their school to get knowledge. But we still gonna grind for them dollars. Ain't no Alicia tie on my collar. The stories revised, we writing the lies. Don't rock and roll, but we got honor. Rock and roll, no Madonna. No Rolling Stones, no Nirvana. I'm Chuck Berry and I'm very white and I'm very tight with my mama. And I got every right to go crazy. Them scary nights is what made me, but still I rise to steal the prize. You be ill-advised to try to play me. Good evening, good evening. Welcome everybody. My name is Damon Williams and I am here with the Chicago Torture Justice Center. And we are opening up a night of celebration as we are celebrating 6 years of the historic passing of a reparations ordinance and 4 years of the existence of the Chicago Torture Justice Center. And we are here for an evening of expressing creativity and performance and how arts intersects with healing and movement building. We are fortunate to be joined here today by performer Avery R. Young. Want to give a little housekeeping or a little heads up to folks. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty. And so we're adjusting some and we've expanded some of the program of this hour we're gonna have and we're gonna figure it out. So I actually have a very special guest that came to join us and support in adjusting and making this a special evening for everybody. But first, I just want to thank and shout out a few of the sponsors that have been making this entire month and this evening possible. I want to first shout out Hot House, who have been making this actual stream and running the tech of all of these events. We are very grateful. We want to shout out the Old Town School of Folk Music, the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation, the Tried and True People's Law Office, and the Human Rights Lab of the Poems and Family Center for Human Rights for making this month possible. I am here, like I said, with the Chicago Torture Justice Center, and we just want to encourage everybody as we are celebrating this entire month of May, this historic legacy of reparation, this historic fight against torture and for healing. We need support. And so if you would be so kind to just always check over what's happening at chicagotorturejustice.org. Just keep that, kind of in your bookmarks and go on over there. And if you look now, you can go to these May events and donate to the center, as well as donating to the funding of the very important Torture Justice Memorial Project that has still not yet to be built in our city. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We thank you for being here. We thank you for all of your support, for any and all of the survivors that are present and observing this, or at least just here in spirit, and your families. We love you, we cherish you, we honor you. We are so grateful for your resilience and the way you living in your truth and your fight for justice has inspired so much of us to be more responsible in our work and how we show up to this world and to this city. So thank y'all for joining us. We are here. And I want to introduce and invite a special performance from our special guest, who's going to be joining us a little bit later for a facilitated conversation and dialogue. But first, we are going to hear an excerpt from their work. So I have the pleasure of introducing playwright, poet, educator, professor, and teaching artist, as well as organizer extraordinaire, a founder of the Let Us Breathe Collective, as well as the Defund CPD campaign. Also, my greatest artistic mentor, and last but not least, my actual big sister, acclaimed. Oh, I was just doing the bio off the top of my head because I know her, but we also need to now add TV screenwriter and staff writer for the new season that just premiered of The Shy. So we are very grateful to have her here with us. And I'm going to pass it and bring up to the stage Christiana Ray Colon, who's going to share an excerpt of some of her work but before we continue on in this event. Christiana, thank you for being here.
Hey, how y'all feeling this Monday morning? I said, how y'all feeling this Monday morning? My name is Yananga. Let me hear you say Yananga. Very nice. All right. You've got to honor the code, follow roads that climb, ascend with intention, get your mission aligned, mine mountainsides for quartz that quantum vibrations, but dig yourself gently not to crack the foundation. I said you got to honor the code, the hypertext of your selfhood. I hyperflex and it felt good to rise in my power, to ground in my purpose, to shine on my cowards because I never had an enemy. Just kin on the perimeter, fearing my light will make them dim to me. I honored the code encrypted in me, then grow taller than tails chiseled on the crypt wall. I was working at the pyramid till I slipped, fall for the scheme. Quit competing with my sisters, now I floss with the beam's diamond web between stars. I indigo empathy. The wicked giggle with their new toys while I fee with life forms that get tipsy on noise. Ancient rain dance make the sun thunder. I shapeshift in the fissures till the gun wonder what it blasting at. I jaguar and wildebeest, the master of my habitat. Camouflage in Congress on my entourage, laugh in the back, strapped in black and suited up. I flute a swarm of hornets at those suited up to shoot at us. We shooting moons to ruby dust. Lights action, cause we cute and stuff. No plastic planet ruling us. My granddad had the truth engraved in cola nut to use as cuffs. Link with all the heirlooms scattered in your snacktron chatter. The code conduct electric pulse embedded in your laughter. You've got to discipline your energy to rise inside your matter. And that is a little excerpt from a play I wrote called Suspension. And Suspension is an Afrofuturist, dystopian, sci-fi, high school rebellion story where 4 teens on the power cheer team rise up to oppose their school's hyper-militarized security and surveillance force. So it sort of imagines a world where the systems of policing that we have in our schools have reached sort of their dystopian ends. And so the excerpt that I just performed imagines this moment where a teaching artist comes into the school kind of as a double agent, like she's coming in under this new disciplinary regime, but at the school assembly, through poetry, she kind of lets the students know that she's there to shake it up a little bit, because we know that poetry is one of the ways that we hide our rebellions. And so I am very grateful to be here in conversation with my real little brother and partner in art and organizing, and our Uncle Avery, our real Uncle Avery. What's up, Unc? You here?
So Avery is in the room. We're gonna give him a few more moments, and we're actually gonna go to a video clip real quick. So thank you so much, Christiana, for warming up, and we're gonna get back in convo in a little bit. I'm so grateful for having you here and talking more through some of those themes. And if we could, Vedran, shout out to Vedran from Hot House, pull up this amazing piece that was actually released almost a year to the day last year, actually on the day of uprising beginning here in Chicago, well, not just here in Chicago, but all over the nation. So before we hear from Avery in the flesh, we are gonna hear and see this amazing piece to ground us in this event this evening. So with no further ado, you can go ahead and play that video.
This is Mose Wright. I am the uncle of Emmett Lewis Till. Sunday morning about 2:30, someone called at the door. And I said, who is it?
Were you there when they did what they did to that boy? Were you there when they did what they did to that boy? Were you there when they snatched him out in my uncle's house? Were you there when they snatched him out in my uncle's house? Were you there when they led him to life? Were you there when they led him to the wife? Is this him? 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 Were you there? Were you there when they led him to the barn? Oh, were you there? Were you there when they led him to the barn? Oh, were you there when they took a fan belt, tied around his neck and threw him in the river? Oh, were you there when they took a fan belt, tied around his neck and threw him in the river? Oh, were you there? Somebody wade in the water all night long. Were you there? Were you there? Somebody wade in the water all night long. But were you there? Were you there when the mama, when I got the call? Were you there? Were you there? Were you there? Oh, were you there? When the mama, when I got the call, they got in it, they got in it. White boys got in it, they got in it. Were you there? Were you there when they showed her mother, when they showed her son? Were you there? Were you there when they showed her mother, when they showed her son? Were you there? 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 He'll scream till you got a weak in the knees. Were you there? He'll scream till he got weak in the knees. Were you there? She got cheering, see him all dressed in black. Were you there? Were you there? She got cheering, see him all dressed in black. Oh, but were you there? See Sister Spanked. Were you there? Were you there? Hear brothers cry. See sisters faint. Were you there? Were you there? Were you there when that white boy bragged about what he had done? Were you there? Were you there? Were you there? Big old white boy brag about what he had done. He said, I got a nigga, 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 got a green-eyed nigga, stuttering nigga, a red-bone nigga, an uppity nigga. But that's what I'm getting. But that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. But that's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. For whistling and white women. Were you there? Were you there? Were you there? Were you there? When the jury came back, said not guilty. Oh, this is America's favorite part, y'all. Were you there? Were you there? Were you there? Oh, you here? When the jury came back, said not guilty. Said not guilty. Were you there? Are you here? Are you here? Are you here? Juries keep coming back, said not guilty. Were you there? Are you here? Are you here? Juries keep coming back. Juries keep coming back, saying not guilty. Saying not guilty. Now tell me, who gonna run for him? Who gonna run for him? Who gonna raise image children who gonna dry his mother's tears. Help me. Who gonna stand for any man? Who gonna march for any man? Who gonna fight for any man? Who gonna sing for any man? Who gonna sing for any man? Who gonna shout for any man? Who gonna dance for any man? Who gonna, hey, who gonna fight for any man? Who gonna die for any man? Who gonna live? 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 Who gonna live?
Ooh, phenomenal. So that's just, a documented piece of what this next person brings. And I want to thank them as I'm about to introduce them, because we were having some technical difficulties and actually adjusted and took the phone out into the street and is going to make it happen, because so committed to being here, although it is, we're having a little bit of issues. So I have the privilege of bringing to this virtual stage who you just saw, not only an example and mentor for me and my family, but an important lineage creator, an important continuer of the tradition of liberation here in this city and throughout our world, a phenomenal teaching artist, performer, and curator. Everybody, welcome to this event. He out on the street, y'all. The one and only Avery R. Young.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I apologize. I figure like this is like really on some other things. But this is what I want to do in the midst of all of this talk of healing and freedom fighting and things of that nature. If them blue men pull me over, if I reach back for mine, if they think it heat, if black blood goes flat, stretch me across my cooling board and say I'm legend. Please put it behind my hashtag. The air, my only weapon. Oh my God, how come murder make us legend? Oh my God, if they kill me and make me legend, wouldn't be the first, say on tour, north and west, east and south. The systemic epidemic of die, getting back in the house, driver's ed lesson plans on how not to get taken out. ASA, blue men speaking Spanish, adios, hombre, show your hands, just comply. When we do, we still die. Here face down on the ground, turn the concrete in the sky. If the blue man pull me over, if I reach back for my ID, if they think it heat, if black blood goes splat, stretch me across my cooling board and say I'm legend. Please put it behind my hashtag, my skin, my only weapon. Oh my God, oh my God. How come murder make us legend? Oh my God, don't let them kill me and make me legend. Oh my God, I was born a legend. Oh my God, find my mama, remind her, her gave birth to a legend. Oh. May this cup pass over me. Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. May this cup pass over me. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord. I'm in the garden of Gethsemane. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, oh my Lord. It is thy will, then let it be. Whoa, 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 Lord. May this cup pass over me. Whoa, 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 Lord. May this cup pass over. I got somebody. I've been in somebody's garage way. Oh, thought it would be better aesthetics. All right, yo. I love y'all. I'm going to holler at y'all later. All right, peace.
That was so dope. Thank you, Avery. We love you, Avery.
Y'all see how much I love y'all? Y'all see how much I love y'all?
Yes, making it work. I appreciate you bouncing back for us. Thank you so much. So that was the phenomenal Avery R. Young. And again, we apologize for the technical difficulties, but I'm grateful to him for making it work in this virtual pandemic reality, right? That would have been a pop in on a stage, and there would have been some of that experience. But it's funny, I don't know if folks read the bio of this event. In his bio, he is called one of our greatest living street poets. And so just in the spirit of who he is, the tech ain't working. And so we're going to take it out to the streets and make it happen. So we are grateful for his presence and showing up. And so for the rest of this hour, I'm inviting Christiana back to the space, because in addition to just performance, art just being seen as performance as a form of entertainment, I want to go a little bit deeper and have a conversation about the practice and how cultural traditions and creative craft are embedded and intertwined with healing work, not only overcoming the injuries that we and our people experience, but also for all the folks that are watching that just are trying to show up to do the work, right? And how we have to build up our own capacity. And so we're just going to keep on going and keep on flowing. We adjusted around. So she was, imagine that we just did that piece, right? So rewind back to about 15, 20 minutes earlier in the program and come out of that spirit. And I welcome you back, Christiana, just to talk a little bit more about what you offered us in that excerpt, and how the stage and stage writing has been a part of your craft and your exercise and your freedom work.
Yeah, so that that excerpt was in the voice of this sort of mystical, fictional teaching artist that comes into the school and sort of acts as a double agent, and provokes these young people to tap into their higher consciousness, to like hack their school's, AI disciplinary system. And, I think it definitely comes out of, I spent many years teaching at Phillips High School, playwriting for the Young Playwrights Festival. And over the course of my experience at Phillips, I just experienced policing in the school in not only the actual physical presence of cops, But just like the energy of the hallways and how adults interact with the young people and like the announcements that came over the PA system, like all of it was in this like very controlling, like policing tone. And for me, you know, like I went to Whitney Young, like we had metal detectors, but we walked right around them. Like we didn't actually ever go through the metal detector. And we certainly didn't have cops just like stationed at the school, even though we're like right across the street from the police training academy. But that wasn't a part of the culture that I grew up in at Whitney Young. So it was really jarring for me going into Phillips and just seeing how we are socializing young people to equate policing and control with learning and education, and like how antithetical that was. And so it was really my experience at Phillips that led me to write Suspension and imagine sort of this fictional high school where, you know, through a series of like really sneaky rollouts, like the parents just like click agree on the school's mobile app and don't read the fine print and the terms of service, and are just signing away more and more of their young people's rights and freedoms, and physical safety. And I think that that's often how our freedoms get eroded. And so, you know, for me, Suspension is definitely like this speculative fantasy that both like imagines the dystopian ends we might end up at if we follow along the path that we're on, but also imagines like the absolute resilience in the face of repression that Black girls and Black girl culture really embodies. I mean, you know, I also wrote this play during the era when the video was circulating of that school security officer like body slamming this girl in the classroom, and that is the type of policing and like just like bodily autonomy being constantly policed and restricted, whether it be our hair, whether it be how we dress, and so, you know, Suspension is also my fantasy of how these Black girls really, just like through celebrating all that is magical about them, are rising up to oppose this oppressive power system. So I think just in terms of like how my art practice, you know, like that is my way of moving through kind of the trauma of like seeing these young people in a system where like my power to help them feel more free was very limited as a teaching artist coming in for like 1 hour a week, you know? And so I can try to make my classroom, my 1 hour as liberatory as possible. But then like the very next announcement that they hear on the PA is like telling them they got to go to detention if they don't get to class in 10 seconds. And then like counting down the 10 seconds, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know. That was a long-winded answer to your question, I think.
No, I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate you giving the context of the setting of that piece, because the way in which you talk about the school, right, it's very telling to, you know, the legacy that brings us here, of the way in which carcerality, the way in which violations of consent, the way in which abuse are embedded into our culture. And so as a community that has come together to name the healing of this horrific, historically tragic tradition of torture that, you know, our city has invested in heavily, it is interesting to note the way in which our students, our young people, are being conditioned to accept those types of power dynamics as normal, right? And so in talking to just a lot of the survivors, getting this expansive understanding of consent and violation, and like that it happens much more than just the highest extremes that have brought this community together and that have been at the base of this fight. So I appreciate you sharing that piece with us. I want to even go back a little bit further, because we're going to end this conversation with everybody watching, everybody listening, everybody viewing. We want to give folks a little bit of exercise or a framework to take out of this evening of how to use this tradition we're building of memorial building to go further and do your own healing and your own capacity building. But I want to go back to the fact that we just had Avery here. And I just want everybody who I'm sure was experiencing or absorbing that in, if you want to get more of Avery, definitely go check out his album, Booker T Soul Train, a race rekkid. That's spelled real black and country. So Google Avery R. Young, Booker T. Soul Train. It's not spelled traditionally, a race record, and get much more of his work. And I bring Avery back into this conversation because art was my entry point into activating consciousness and into finding community. So I've said many times, it is not the rippity raps, that is my contribution to movement. But if it wasn't for that practice, I wouldn't even be able to see myself relative to community. I wouldn't even been able to understand organizing or community, or how to exist outside of our institutional frameworks. And so I trace some of the roots of that. And I remember being 10, 11, 12 years old, following behind you as Avery was one of your teachers and one of your mentors in the poetic tradition and in the hip hop art scene here in Chicago. And so, Avery has been a steward of this cultural tradition. You have stewarded that tradition. I am working in that tradition now. And I just want to kind of invite folks into it. And so for you, with that context, how has art, craft, and creative work helped you build your capacity to show up, or helped you heal your wounds, even if showing up is not, possible on the horizon? And so, yeah, how does your craft get you into your movement work?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the first thing that comes to my mind is like, at my heart, I'm a producer. And if the movement needs an event produced, like I'm the one to do it. So whether that be a defund CPD training weekend, I'm gonna produce the heck out of that. Or, an arts and political education hybrid event, like creating spaces, creating portals, bringing people together, is like the part of my craft that like I am always most energized to bring to movement work. But so I talked about suspension a little bit, but I think the play of mine that is most notably like in my canon of abolitionist theater is Florissant and Canfield, the play that I wrote that was really kind of a fictional reimagining of the birth of the Let Us Breathe Collective and like our experience of going to Ferguson and some of the contradictions that we were met with there. And, so that piece was very much the beginning of me sort of declaring that my work was going to be toward abolition, like that I was dedicating my craft to playwriting toward that end. And so that I am now working on its follow-up piece, Holman and Fillmore, sort of carrying on this this notion of like the physical intersection being a metaphor for some of the interpersonal intersections that we encounter in movement work. And Holman and Fillmore, of course, being the intersection where we staged our encampment at Freedom Square. And so when I was interviewing Jennifer about Holman and Fillmore, I asked her, like, is this a piece that you think should exist? Like I was feeling self-conscious about writing it, in large part because I felt so unresolved with so much of the actual trauma that happened that summer, and some of the interpersonal wounds from that summer. And so I was asking her, like, should I even be doing this? Like, is this okay for me to do? And she said something to me that has like resonated in my mind ever since then, which is that like I should write this play if for no other reason than I will process it via writing a play in a way that I won't get in any other area of my life. That like for me specifically, like writing this play will be the healing that I need from that event. And like that's like a very like individualist maybe justification for writing the play. But I, I think like also I feel like it is my historical duty to sort of document some of these things that you and I and the people in our circle have firsthand experience of, but also like I really need that. Like I really be needing that, you know, for my own ability to come back and show up for the work, that outlet to process through this lens of like going back and retelling the story and pointing out the things that I wish that I had done differently, or like, you know, pointing out the contradictions from the perspective of the wisdom that I've gained since then, I think is like one of the gifts that I'm able to give myself through my craft.
And so, yeah, that really resonates, this idea of documentation, right? Like, I think a lot of times what I hope people gather from this conversation is we are encouraging everyone to be in practice, right? And everyone to engage in craft as a way to build ourselves and to build movement. And so what I heard from there, right, is connected to this limitation, I think, of how we approach arts and movement, of like, you know, art is the sugar that gets people to come, right? Or art is entertaining and like can cut the stress, and like when we're getting too heavy, then we can go high and we can dance. But I think there are bigger importance to why everyone needs to have some type of craft or space for creative practice if they're in this liberation space. So I think one thing you just named was documentation, because we are creating these counter histories, right? Like the institutions that we are resisting, the institutions that have harmed our people, want to establish narratives that affirm their presence and their power, or at least want to invalidate or erase or invisibilize narratives that challenge or name the harm. And so I want to talk about memory with you a little bit, and why it is important to remember, and how some of our practices can help us remember. Because big part, one thing, here comes the intentional plug, folks can support the funding of building the memorial for the survivors of police torture here in Chicago, as it is important that we continue to put pressure on our city and our government to uphold its responsibility. But we as a whole city have a lot of memory and memorial building to do. So I want to take that notion of memory and expand it, right? Because I think that is part of the fuel. And so for you, how do you see memory relative to our craft making, our creative practice, as ways to document, as ways to account, or as ways to set free?
Yeah, I want to answer that question, but I want to go back to something that you said.
Go back.
Just because, you know, it was really like just one of those turning point moments for me. You're talking about documentation, and counter narrative, and like just like all of the propaganda that we are up against. And I really believe that it took me so long to get to abolition, and I say so long insofar as like we were on the streets in Ferguson, we were on the streets in Chicago. It was like I'm like canvassing with BYP, and it took me several months of being on the side of like Black Lives Matter and being on the front lines of protest before the notion of abolition occurred to me. And I think it took me that long because of how much dang on Law and Order I have ingested in my lifetime. Like I've literally just binged seasons and seasons and seasons of Law and Order. And you know, like I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but just like the amount of pro-police propaganda that is just embedded in our everyday culture. Like Cops has had like 20 something plus seasons, you know, it's like the most watched. It has some crazy statistics about, you know, its viewership, Law and Order, this huge franchise, right? And so for me, like I decided to like commit my craft to this because I just realized the magnitude of propaganda for the opposition. And so like it felt important for me to then say like, okay, I have to like chip away at that, you know, from my own little corner of the universe. And that really has been like what inspired me to make the transition from stage to screen, because as much as I really wanted to keep it in the like intimate, visceral space of the theater, I just realized that mass media is pumping out this like pro-police propaganda that doesn't even, like, we don't even realize, I think, how much we ingest and are socialized to accept the narrative that like you call 911 and someone on the other end is going to send someone to help you. And that is just not what it is, right? So anyway, that sorry to go on a little tangent, but just as you were talking about counter narrative and made me think about that. But to answer your question about memory and the place of memory in our movement making and movement work, and sort of in line with what I was just saying, like there's just so much content meant to like gaslight us into believing that what is happening is not happening. And our, creative, righteous rage filled, like all of the ways that we collectively express that, like, no, what, like, this is actually happening. It happened to me, or it happened to this person that I know and love. It is ongoing. Like all of that is movement work. It is how we create a public record, a collective record that is counter to what dominant culture is trying to lie about, right? And so, we're talking about memorials, and it just made me think about like this week seeing George Floyd Plaza just filled with flowers and placards and art and graffiti, and that space being transformed into a memorial space, which of course like harkens back to our experience in Ferguson and seeing Canfield Ave become this like living memorial for Mike Brown, and being burned down and then built again and then burned again, and how like these memorials become contested spaces that we have to fight for, that are under attack, where we have to constantly iterate and reiterate that a person lived, that their life was valuable. And so, I want to sort of offer, as we start to transition into inviting folks to respond, just the question of like, how do we make memorial when we don't have those physical spaces, that the candles in the center of the street? How do we make memorial in our day-to-day lives, or in our writing? And so, if we're going to take it on the writing prompt side of things, I would invite folks to think about building a memorial in a poem or in a monologue. Or if you want to try to think about building memorial into your day-to-day life, your day-to-day practice, is it lighting a candle or pouring a libation for an ancestor, for a loved one? And so if we're thinking about it on the writing side of things, I would invite you to write a poem or a monologue that memorializes yourself, or an experience that you've had, something that you've been through, or that memorializes an ancestor or a loved one or a freedom fighter, someone that inspires you, or that memorializes a communal experience, like, maybe it's memorializing Uprising 2020 or Von Derek Meyer's funeral or the day the city removed the Columbus statue. Any type of collective experience like that. So that is one side of the invitation, to think about building memorial inside of a writing practice, to invite you into this collective visioning, and bringing craft into the space of movement. And then also, like on the ritual side of things, is there a ritual that you can create in your everyday life that is an act of memorial, whether that be every time you water a plant, you say the name of someone who's passed that you want to invite into life, into the space. So that is my offering. What do you think about that, Damon?
I think that's really amazing. And I think this is actually something we can encourage folks to do throughout the year. So for folks who are watching live, for folks who check this out a little bit later, either video or audio, we want to invite you into community. We want to invite you to step in a little bit. And so, they are passive, well, not passive. There are some traditional important ways to support, right? You can sign petitions, you can donate, you can go to chicagotorturejustice.org and donate to the Chicago Torture Justice Memorial and donate to the continuation of building the new Chicago Torture Justice Center. So there are those like more direct, straightforward ways that you can show up. But we want to build community here. So if there are particularly any survivors in this space or observing this or engaging this, we invite you into this prompt. But all supporters and all viewers, take that 3-level practice of memorial and let's see if we can share it. So I did this on the fly in terms of how we can receive it, but we could take actual submissions at info@chicagotorturejustice.org. And in that way, we also can get your contact information and be in community. But start building that memorial practice in whatever form you may. We here grounded in some of the poetic traditions, so that can be writing or that can be storytelling, but it can be photography, it can be painting and watercolor, it can be dance, whatever craft speaks to you. It could be drum patterns. Let's memorialize on 3 levels as a way to build with each other. So first, like Christiana said, memorialize a personal experience you have. And that does not have to be relegated only to trauma. You can have memory of any of your experience, because it's important to be self-connected and self-aligned. So write yourself or create yourself one practice of personal memorial, and then memorialize someone else. So that can be an ancestor, that can be a loved one, that can be a working partner, that can be a practitioner that inspires you, a performer of some sort that does the work. So write memory or memorial of someone else, another person. And then lastly, memorialize a community or a collective experience. So we certainly invite folks to write poetic or other memorial of this legacy of survivorship of police and prison torture, but we can expand to other community experiences as well. So whether that is healing of grief or celebration or joy, we want folks to take those 3. So I think either Cindy or Gina may be in the chat on this. So folks on the Facebook, we want to get those memorials, and you can even send it to the Facebook too. That's another place, Chicago Torture Justice. So personal memorial of someone else, collective and communal memorial. And I think that's a really beautiful offering. Thank you so much. So in closing, Christiana, when we remember, right? When we do the practice and the craft of remembering, whether that's performative or intimate, when we remember, what do you see being more possible from refusing to forget and choosing to remember through our expression?
I think in remembrance, we both collect tools and lay blueprints for building the future. It is in our recounting both that we are able to stake our claim in our own vision of what happened and what we would like to see happen, and we're able to envision things that don't exist yet. And so, I think that those are the things. You collect the tools that you need to build, and you write the blueprints for what is to come.
Ashe. Well, thank you so much, Christiana, for joining us. And
thank you so much for having me. Good to hang out with my baby bro on Zoom.
You look beautiful, sister. So I appreciate you so much, and thank you for your offerings and your wisdom. And from that place of remembrance, before I re-thank all the people that made this happen, I just want to take a quick moment for everyone watching or everyone listening. If we can have a moment of remembrance for Mike Seasway Elliott, who transitioned yesterday on the 20, I'm sorry, I'm losing my dates, who transitioned yesterday on May 25th, 2021. on African Liberation Day. And for those who don't know, Mike Seasway Elliott, as a young person coming up in movement, he was one of the first and sometimes the only person I can identify as elder who was out there on the streets with us in support and in step. So many of our events and actions, as a member of Black Lives Matter Chicago, and also as a member of CARPER, and really fighting for the CPAC ordinance, but also was very present and very connected to this history of torture justice and reparations in our city. So for all those that knew and love Mike, and I am very grateful for the kindness and the example that he set for me personally and for my peers and my comrades. So we'll just take a moment in love and remembrance of Mike Seasway Elliott. We love you, Mike. And with that, we love all of you who are here and who are no longer here with us. And we want to invite you to continue out this month of May celebrating with us as we remember our beautiful community and the resilience of our survivors and our leaders. And the month is this, I think was our last Wednesday, but we have a few more things popping off, particularly this Saturday at the Breathing Room Farm and Gardens on 50th and Laughlin. And so this Saturday, we have 2 back-to-back workshops. At 1:30, we have Visualizing Breath, a workshop with Patricia Nguyen, an artist, educator, and award-winning memorial designer for the Chicago Torture Justice Memorial, who did the great practice of helping to organize a lot of the survivors in designing and bringing their creativity and their story to designing the memorial that we need to build. So come at 1:30, 5045 South Laughlin. And then right after that, starting right up at 2, we have Experimental Black Dance in the Garden. The workshop will engage participants in trauma-informed dance education, which uses movement to investigate historical pain and somatic memory in order to heal and construct wellness-centered perspectives. That will be presented by the Old Town School of Folk Music. And from there, also, Old Town School of Folk Music will be doing, coming soon, we'll post details momentarily, weekly drum workshops at that same location. Also want to invite folks to our shop to get a t-shirt or become a pollinator and help support. So go visit the shop at chicagotorturejustice.org and get the Torture Justice t-shirt, or support this fight for reparations and building the memorial in a few different ways. And lastly, but not least, I want to thank and shout out again all of the partners and sponsors that made this happen. Hot House on a technical level, making it happen minute to minute for all of this pandemic-friendly virtual reality work. And we hope that next year, next May, it will be comfortable and fun for us to be in person again. Old Town School of Folk Music, the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation, the Human Rights Lab, the People's Law Office, and also my original political and creative home, the Let Us Breathe Collective. We are so grateful for all of our partnerships and coming together to make this work happen. Without cooperation, we would be nowhere. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone for showing up, and be on alert, stay tuned, because we are working to move into a new space with the Chicago Torture Justice Center, and it is an exciting but yet robust project. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities to support, and the support that started in this month is not going to end. We need to go all the way through next May to make sure that we have the space we need to do the healing work that our folks deserve. So thank you so much for tuning in this evening. Thank you everybody who's come to the previous events and all the folks who have supported and donated. Please go again to chicagotorturejustice.org and support in any way that you can. Thank you to my big sister, Christiana Ray Colon. Thank you, Avery R. Young. Thank you, Gina, Vedran, Aislinn, Cindy, and everybody else that's make this happen. Mark, Greg, Latanya, Damon and Carl, and all the other survivors in our community. We love you and we appreciate you, and we'll be back soon. Much love to the people. Let's build our memorials. Peace out.
Thanks, bro. Good night.